Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for your patience. A couple technical difficulties here. I know most of you are used to me starting off the show with my countdown timer and my intro video, and we're all set up, ready to go. Sorry I'm late, but I'm setting up different lights to get all the lighting perfect in this studio, and my power went out right before the show. So what do you know? Well, welcome everyone to 2 Cents with Bentz. I am your host, Dana Bentz. And if you're new here, 2 Cents with Bentz is a marketing and branding show that I created about, we're coming up on 2 months already. So it's a pretty new show where I get to interview experts in the marketing and branding field. So we have a really great guest on tonight. I saw Woody in the comments paging Dana. Thank you. Sorry we were late, Woody. And NLTMW, Mike, thank you so much for tuning in again from Niagara Falls. Oh, very cool. So yeah, I like this show to be as interactive as it can be, because it's so much more fun to hear your questions for my guest than it is to hear my questions for my guest, so that we can kind of have a round table conversation. Mike says, I found that paying the power bill helps. LOL. Good one. Okay, so we have a great show for you tonight. So we have on Terry Schilling. And the topic of today's show, I titled it How to Tell a More Compelling Story for Your Brand, or how to tell a compelling story for your brand. But does your brand even have a story? So I think that's something that we're going to kind of brainstorm back and forth today. But do you have a story? Do you know how to tell the story? That's what Terry's going to help us with today. So on our episode, we're going to talk about content, copywriting, but a little bit about our guest before I bring him on. Terry is a copywriter and brand messaging strategist who helps creative entrepreneurs, freelancers, and small business owners attract the right customers over and over with the right words. Love that. So today we're going to be talking about why telling your brand story is important. We're going to talk about what the key strategies are in telling a compelling brand story, and how to keep your brand messaging consistent, which is pretty hard to do. So without further ado, I would love to bring on Terry.
Hey, hello. Yes, we're here. All right.
we're here finally. A
Yeah.
couple minutes late, but better late than never.
All good. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. Jinx. But Dana, thanks for having me on. Really excited to be here today.
Yeah, absolutely. We got connected through another live stream expert, Stephanie Liu. So shout out to her.
Shout out to Stephanie, and shout out to StreamYard as well. I know, obviously we're on there now, and I know that's kind of like your day to day. That's kind of like how we got connected as well. So
yeah, you do your own StreamYard show.
Yeah. I have a show called Proceed with Passion. I do that every week. And I bring on like fellow creative entrepreneurs similar to this, and we talk about kind of like the origin stories, like the first stops, post college works, and then how they became to do what they do now. And then we have a lot of like keys to success and some fun, like actionable tips depending on what the entrepreneur does. But that's something fun I like to do, just a good way to connect with other people, especially during this time. But I love using StreamYard.
Yeah. Oh, very cool. Well, for those people who don't know you, for the people in my audience who don't know who Terry is, can you give us a brief background on who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So Terry Schilling, I am like Dana said, I am a copywriter. Have been in copywriting since 2013, where I got my first job at an agency outside of Chicago, and I still live in Chicago, to this day. And I just gradually got into, this marketing world from a broadcast journalism side, and started just doing, research of, neuromarketing and, why consumers buy, the psychology behind copywriting. And it eventually just led me to, branching out, starting my own work, starting a side hustle as a freelancer, and then starting my own business a little over 2 years ago. And it's just continued to evolve. And I help a lot of clients with website copy and brand messaging, and those two go really hand in hand. Once we can figure out the foundation of like the personality, the brand values, the mission statements, how we're going to communicate on our channels, that can really then transition to the website. We mentioned I do the Proceed with Passion. This is where like I feel like the humble bragging is going to come in when like people say I do all this stuff. And like, I just find sometime to do all this content, give the people what they want, more content, right? But proceed with passion. I do the Copy Corner, which is a podcast and YouTube show as well. I am the founder of the Copy Co-op Group, and that's for writers, entrepreneurs, business owners looking to improve their copywriting skills. They can go on that. Cool. And then I host a show called Whose Tagline Is It Anyway? Which is
good title.
Yeah, which is where I bring on another guest. So like if you and I did this, Dana, we'd have my assistant on there, and she looks up a real company, and then she gives us a very brief description of what the product is. And then we each get 25 seconds to come up with a tagline on the spot.
That's
really.
good. That's good.
That's really
so it's like a competition show.
Yeah, exactly. I try to get people to interact and like tell us who wins and like write their own tagline.
How fun.
To get it. So.
Yep. Tim says, Terry, I need to talk to you.
Tim, what's good,
for my website?
Yeah.
Tim, thanks for watching. So we have a lot to talk about today because I think there's a lot of tips you have for people who are trying to build their brand, because brand messaging is so important in that. But can you talk about how, when someone's first starting out writing about their brand or trying to tell a better story or maybe a more consistent story, like what would be some of your tips for someone doing that for their brand?
Yeah, the first thing is determining who you're speaking to, right? I think it comes back to who you're helping and how you can really improve their lives. And so like your mission statement, when you talk about that, is really like your why. So like, why are you doing what you're doing to get, to where you want to be? And, for me, there's like some exercise that you can do to look up like your ideal customer avatar, just write out what their day-to-day is like what they're like when they wake up, what do they do? And really, I like to say like what like pisses them off a part of their day that you can help, relieve and help solve this problem.
That's a good question to ask. That's like what entrepreneurs ask, like what's the pain point that I can solve?
Yeah, exactly. Like I even ask my clients that in discovery calls, talking about business goals, but it's like, what pisses you off about like your industry and like why you're doing what you're doing? It just really gets a lot of good detailed answers. But yeah, just thinking about who your audience is and who you're speaking to, and who you want to reach, then find out where they're hanging out. And then you can start, talking about what's your personality like, what is my mission statement? What are these brand values that I want to communicate online? And then just try to be consistent with it, of course. So like if people go to my website and then they find me on LinkedIn or see my YouTube channel, like the personality and the messaging, it's all still there, right? You can know that it's still Terry. I'll tell you what, like Dane, I'm sure you can attest this too. It takes time. There's trial and error involved. Like there's always this foundation.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. There's this foundation to it. Right. But, I think a lot of it is just putting the action behind it and figuring out kind of, what sticks and what type of things like you say, like, and then getting comfortable with who your audience is and who you're speaking to.
Yep. A lot of trial and error. That makes sense. So that actually brings me to the Twitter segment. We have a nice transition into our Twitter segment. So I just started asking my Twitter followers. I'm telling them what we're going to talk about today. And then I asked, tweet at us a question you want to ask Terry. So last week with my guest, we had the very first tweet and I asked him the tweet. But today we have a tweet from my sister. She normally tunes in, but she had to do something tonight. I don't know what.
No, all good.
But she had a great question and I love this question. So she says, Terry, in one sentence, how would Terry describe his brand? My brand, I love this. I would say copywriting is cool. Be the best way to describe my brand, because I have this philosophy, if you will, that I use, and it's on my homepage, and it's something that it ties into the brand messaging side, where to me, great copy does this: it tells people how cool they can be instead of how cool you are. And if you have that type of messaging, like it's a cooler way to say customer centric language, to be honest. But I just think when I relay that to people, it makes it seem like more approachable and like, that's right. Like what makes my customers feel cool? And don't talk about how cool I am by creating this and all my features. What are these benefits that help people, feel something? I love that. So you're trying to make them feel cool, the customer or the
Yes.
audience or the
Yes.
viewers, not yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
Like think
love
about why
that.
you buy Apple or why you wear certain clothes. It's because it's
Right.
really like they're manufacturing this feeling. And like a lot of times like we
Right.
feel cooler, we feel cool about doing this. So
Mhm.
that's kind of where I've started to, hone in on my message and really focus that part of, my brand. And it seems to be
Yeah.
sticking. So which is
Seems to
cool.
be sticking. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, when I went to your website for the very first time, I was just like, "Oh, this is a great website." Like
Thank
I
you.
feel like I know what you bring to the table from the website. And
Yeah.
I think
Thank
that's
you.
the point, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have like my newsletter is the Cool Copy newsletter. And
Yep.
it's like double fold. So it's just like I want the like you or like Tim like learn how to write copy so they
Yeah.
can feel cooler about their business. Like it helps them feel cool by writing copy that like converts, but they're
Yeah.
also helping, their customers feel that way as well. And I just like sharing valuable and actionable, advice that people can use when it comes to copywriting because it's such like a big skill, an important skill
Yeah.
to have in marketing.
Yeah. And it's so hard to do. I mean, well, it comes easy to some people, but it's
Yeah,
very
no,
hard
yeah,
to do,
yeah, it
especially
is.
making it consistent, I
Yeah,
feel.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like there's a lot of formulas that you can get overwhelmed with and you think you have an idea, but sometimes we can get lazy or again, we just talk about ourselves naturally. Like we're human beings. Like we want to feel,
Yep.
emotion and like our better selves. So it's easy to talk about ourselves and lose a little empathy here and there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gotta
That's
grab that
so
back.
true.
Yeah.
So about the newsletter specifically, if someone signed up for that, what would they be getting? Is it like weekly tips from you?
Yeah, yeah, a little bit, mostly weekly copywriting tips for me. Uh,
Okay.
where I do a little bit of storytelling involved, and I like to give examples too of how you can use the tip in your writing. But then I'll also share any like maybe certain products that I have out, offers. Sometimes just share some things of like what I'm digging right now, like what I'm watching, other things like
Yep.
that too.
Love it. Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
So why would you say telling a brand's story well is important? Like for a brand who's like, well, I don't really know what my brand story is. And
Yeah.
haven't even gone through the why process that you just mentioned. Like,
Yeah.
what would you say to them to kind of tell them it is an important thing?
Yeah. Because it just makes your brand and yourself more relatable to your audience. Because we
Okay.
just really connect with stories. It's what we grew up on. It's what we, a lot of us watch
Yeah.
Netflix and Hulu and everything. Like it draws us in. Some of our
Yeah.
favorite memories are built around stories. And I think it's just a way like to tap into psychology to make us feel connected in a way. Like the dopamine
Interesting.
rises when we like get this novel feeling when we hear something. We can
Yep.
picture ourselves inside the story if you
Yep.
use a lot of good visualization. So it's just a good way to bring awareness to your brand to have this story. And really what that means that, you can share it on interviews like this. You can share it on your website, on your about page, things like that in your bio. But
Mhm.
it's just like, think about like, what's the thing that you do that makes you happy? Like, how did you get there? Like, how did that thing improve your quality of life? Like tell that story and then tie it
Yeah.
into how you improve the quality of life of others. I think is a good way to put it.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
and there's so many ways that you can tell it, use good visualization, have a relatable character like yourself, or you can talk about like your customers in your brand story if you're not talking about your personal brand.
Okay.
And then,
Like the brand, like the product process.
right, exactly. Like if you have like eco-friendly cleaning products, it's like, what's the story of how you came up with that idea? And like
Oh,
you're at,
okay.
and
Yep.
then you have maybe a relatable character like yourself, or like, talk about like how maybe a customer came to you and
Yep.
talk about it. And yeah, just capture emotion and just kind of have that big idea in there that makes them think. It's kind of like unexpected, right? Where it's like, oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And then it's probably a good way to help your audience grow because now more people are connecting with whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah.
And share that with someone else, like, oh, you should try out those eco-friendly products.
Yeah.
It kind of grows word of mouth from there, I guess.
Yeah. There's a human element to it. It's like, if I talk about these cleaning products and how like I looked at my kitchen under my kitchen sink and just saw all this clutterness, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I have 4 cleaners that pretty much do the same thing. Like even that, you're just relating to them, and you're coming off a human instead of just like, hey, we wanted to innovate and reinvent household cleaning products. It's like, that doesn't really capture much emotion. You're talking to everybody there,
Yep.
It's like you can really narrow that focus a little bit if you focus on, the emotional benefit of the benefit, like what makes them feel cool is one way to say
what
it.
makes them feel cool. I love that. And Tim loves it. He says he's in the process of rebranding. So your kids have come had a good time, Terry.
Awesome, Tim. Good.
So the next thing I wanted to talk about with you is how do you stay consistent with this message? Like, once you craft the message, once you figure out the why, once you figure out like how to make your customers feel cool, like how are you able to keep that message the same?
Yeah. I think it's really important just to listen to your audience and continue to figure out, what problems they're having and how they're speaking, and then coming up maybe with content around that, but just keeping that foundation of like your mission and your why.
Yeah.
Right. So if people come to me with certain problems, we can talk about that. And my big thing is just giving them like examples of how they can use it themselves too, and just like being a resource for them as well. But, you said it really is just being consistent and being, picking maybe a few channels that you want to be on and where your audience is hanging out, and just continue, to show up, because like you might only get like a couple people watching, a couple comments on a post, but if you just stick with it, and if it's that important to you, like results will show up. Like it's just like a proven formula. If you keep showing up, good things can happen.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. So now I also wanted to touch on how you're able to stay consistent with all the content you put out. Like you're on podcasts, you're on video casts, you're doing interviews with me, you have your newsletter, like you've got your clients. Like, how are you managing the content?
Yeah. Oh man, that's a great question. I'm still figuring that out, Dana. Anybody else want to leave some comments on how to do this? Please help us out. Help me out. Well, it's really just become like, I've just made an effort that I want to, create and offer resources and offer free resources. So then when people are thinking about copywriting, or somebody asks them about like help with copy, that I'm kind of top of mind, tip of tongue for them. And when I start maybe creating courses or doing some other offerings where I can help people more one-on-one, that I have that support from others and people, and I've built that trust already. So that was just like a big motivational factor for me in creating content. But I've been fortunate to grow where I have a virtual assistant who helps me with scheduling things, keeping me like on task, right? Nice. And just trying to balance out like a good schedule of when I can do these interviews, and just sticking to like a day. It's like, I know every Monday I'm going to record the Copy Corner with my friend Dan. And then like every Wednesday or Thursday, I'm going to do a Proceed with Passion, and then a Whose Tagline Is It Anyway video, like back to back.
Nice. Oh my gosh.
Right? And so
that's hard work.
Yeah. And then any interviews that come in like this one, just try to, sprinkle them in there. Big thing for me is like working in chunks. Like I try to do as best as I can, like 25 minutes, take a break, and then back at it again in 25 minutes.
Smart.
But yeah, sometimes some days are more hectic than others. There's some Saturdays where I end up working a couple hours. But yeah, it's worth it though. It's fun.
Yeah. Well, you're building a business, like you're building a brand. True. So sometimes it can be 24 hours.
Yeah. Maybe one day will be like easy where it's like 25-hour, maybe not 4-hour work week like Tim Ferriss, but maybe close to that.
Yeah. Maybe 14-hour.
Yeah, exactly. The 14-hour work week.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
So Tim actually has a great question. Tim says, how important is emotion to writing good copy? Good question, Tim.
Yeah,
thank you.
That's a great question. And I say it's super important. Like building that tension and that emotional side of things really captures attention and keeps people hooked on what you're doing. It goes back to him to using like a lot of visualization, like words like feel, look, see, asking questions as well, understanding what their pain points are, and then also understanding, what you can do to help improve their life, and then right to that perfect world. And that's where it comes back to, make them feel cool instead of talking about how cool you are, right? Like talk about how cool they can be. What's that day like for them? Because a lot of times we buy things based on emotion and how we feel. Like it's always like a widely used example, but look at Apple, like the MacBooks, they just talk about like what you can create like with a MacBook or with an iPad. They don't really sell that. It's like, oh, it's got like a 2.4 gigahertz, new something screen. They don't say all that in their commercials.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Everybody wants to be
because
Apple, but it's just a good foundation there. Yeah.
Yeah. They know their customer and they know their customer's emotions are like, oh yeah, I want to create something. So let me create on that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. And Tim asks again, can you tell us more about
what are your clients pissed off about?
Specifically do? What are your clients pissed off about?
Oh my gosh. About more specifically what I do. Yeah, I help a lot of creative entrepreneurs, some startups. And really what pisses them off is that they look at their website or their copy and they just feel like, I'm not speaking to the right people. It's all over the place. There's no emotion involved. It's not connecting. And people aren't engaging with it. Like a big pain point I hear from people is just like, I want to write engaging copy. Like I want people to react. Like when they read it, they can connect with me and maybe they buy right away, or at least like they're part of my community in that way. And like a lot of people don't know, how to approach that. And there's a whole lot of stuff involved with copywriting on a website too. There's user experience involved, the UX side. And what I mean by that, Dana and Tim, is just like if someone lands on your website, Dana, and like they see the top banner and they see like this hero tagline, right? Mm-hmm. And then it's like a learn more or like about us. If they click that button, what are they going to learn when they do that? Like how are they going to keep their attention? And if it's a sales page and if they click like the buy now offer, it's like, all right, how are we going to get them to see what they're going to do next? Like, is our call to action button clear? If they click that, like, what's that process going to be like? Like, make it try to be as seamless as possible. And, the look of it is a big part of it, but really the writing and how you're directing people is huge.
Mm-hmm. The user experience, like the user flow from hitting your website to doing business with you or subscribing to the newsletter or following your podcast, whatever's on the website.
Yeah. Like how easy is that process? Right. Yeah. Like I get, I get like some interesting tips where it's just like, you don't necessarily have to say like, click here to sign up for my newsletter or click here to subscribe, because like, that's just building tension when you do that. And what I mean by that is it seems like there's going to be a couple steps involved. I got to click here, then I got to put in my email address, and it just may throw people off right away when reading that. But you can just say like, get this in your inbox here. That's what you say. It's visual, and you click that, and then maybe they still take the same steps, but at least it feels more welcoming to them, where they know that they don't have to do much to get that in their inbox.
Interesting. Good tip. I like that. And that's what your website says for your newsletter, right?
I hope so.
I hope so. Yeah. We're all going to go to your website now just to check.
It probably says click here to subscribe. No, like I had phrases like that, like, hey, join the conversation, which doesn't really mean anything. It's like, what does that mean? Like, it sounds cool, right?
It sounds cool.
but like, it's really, you could be more direct and just say, subscribe to my newsletter at the top. And then it's just like, get this in my inbox on the call to action button.
Yeah. Love that. Good tip. Okay. So the last thing I want to touch on today is email copy. Like how can we make better emails? How can we write better emails? Everyone's emailing everyone all day.
Yeah.
Can you give us a tip or some tips on how we can do that better?
I got no tips on that, Dana. I'm so sorry.
Oh no. All right.
I know. Would that be? That'd be awful. Yeah, this is something that I've been working with clients more on, which has been actually really fun for me. Been kind of doing like some copy consulting, working on like seeing their emails, reviewing them as well. But really, it's just making them easy to read, and then make sure that you hook them right away in the subject line. And I think people can lose track of how to do that. There's a lot of formulas out there. Like the power of the question mark is huge. Just asking a question. Because what a question does, just like from a psychological standpoint, is like it opens up this loop in our head. Like we want to know what the answer is. So we're going to continue to read. One formula that I like to use that I'll give you guys is the what is this formula. So if you just say like you have like a new product offering out, you don't want to say like, hey, check out this automation tool in the inbox or in the subject line. You could just say check out this, just something like that. Like the object you're talking about is this, so that you're making them curious enough to find out what this is. Like, what is this? You know, they're going to open the email and then read it. But the big thing is like your email body copy, it has to really fulfill the promise of the subject line.
Right.
You know, and like fulfill that curiosity that gets them to open it. And like some of my best advice is like every 2 sentences at least, press return or enter, depending on what tool you use, like a MacBook or, you know, Surface Book. Just like
I've been seeing that in emails. Yeah.
White space is your friend. Yeah.
Like focus on your points.
Yeah, absolutely. Like putting in bullet points, italicize or bold, like key things that you want them to read, like headers and throughout the email. Just make it, you know, a structure, make it easy structure. And always remember what's in it for the reader. Like, what do I want them to get out of this?
Yep. And how do you want to make them feel?
Yes, exactly. Yes. I love it. And like, I mean, there's certain ways a lot of people talk about storytelling with emails. And I think it's just really gauging what your audience and your relationship with them. You know, if they're like subscribing to your newsletter like every week and you're just telling like a random story, but then you're connecting it to a copywriting tip, which I've done before. You know, I think I've like quoted like the Eminem Lose Yourself song and I connected it to like a copywriting sales process. Like you can do that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's just like just trying to keep it interesting and what's in it for the reader.
And relatable.
Yep.
Yeah. So good points. Well, Terry, this was such a great interview. Thank you so much for being a guest.
Flew by.
I know, right? We're like pushing 26 minutes. But where can people find more about you, work with you, follow your shows? That's cool stuff.
Yeah, you go to terryschillingwrites.com. There you will be able to see how you can subscribe to my newsletter, see more of the work that I've done as well. And then there's social media links. Really active on Twitter and LinkedIn. You can find me there at Terry Schilling at LinkedIn. And then my Twitter is tschill86. Like it's the year I was born. And it's just like, I want to switch it to my name, which I can't do it but like, I guess I get nervous of like people tagging me and losing all those past conversations, but maybe I just need to suck it up.
Good point. Good point. That's so funny.
I don't know. But because like I see people tag me, I'm like, gosh, that name just like says nothing kind of about what I do. It's just like a pet peeve.
They're like, oh, who's T Schilling 86?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'll just keep it. Maybe it's on brand at this point now. Right?
Right. It's part of the brand story.
Yeah. But LinkedIn, I go live on there. Like you guys can watch the Whose Tagline Is It Anyway videos and, you know, the Copy Corner. But check out Terry Schilling Creative on YouTube. That's where you can see a lot as well. And I did mention the Copy Co-op Facebook group. If you guys want to join that, search Copy Co-op on Facebook and join that group. There's a lot of cool things that we're doing in there, sharing a lot of resources as well.
Copy Co-op on Facebook?
Co-op. Yep. CO-.
Good name.
Yeah. OP.
So you're on Facebook group, YouTube channel, LinkedIn profile, Twitter, the podcast. You got all these things.
I'm on Instagram too. Some of that stuff it all gets kind of repurposed. But I'm not super active everywhere, but
sounds like
I make myself easy to find. And you can learn more about my services and just reach out to me if you want to learn more and interested in maybe connecting, do like a copywriting audit, collaborating one-on-one with something. I'm always happy to listen and talk some more.
Cool. Love it. And Tim says important now more than ever.
Tim, man, thank you so much for joining us and all your questions today.
I know. Thank you, Tim. And he keeps shouting out all the things. He said, shout out to my monitors behind me. Shout out to Tim. Thanks for tuning in. And I think Ross is tuning in with us. We have Beauty Bubble. We have so many people. But Terry, thank you again for being on my show.
Yeah, Dana, thank you so much. This was great. I look forward to continuing to connect and watch more of these. I really appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. And thank you for matching my brand color. I think
oh my gosh. I know. I noticed that as you brought that up. I was like, oh, look at that.
It's perfect. Did you plan that?
No, not at all. But it looked good. I felt like I looked a little bit too casual, but then I was like, oh, but it's like the colors match. So let's go with it.
Perfect. Yeah, it looks great. I should start matching my brand too. That's a great idea. Okay, Terry. Well, thank you again. It was a pleasure.
Dana. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Yeah. Oh, what a great show. I love when my questions lead to actionable tips, like actions we can all take for our websites and emails. And every social media, all the accounts that we have. So that about wraps up another episode of 2 Cents with Bentz. Tim says, shout out again. Tim, thank you so much for tuning in. And to everyone else who tuned in, we will see you next week on another episode of 2 Cents with Bentz. Thanks, everyone.